Feminist film theory is a way of viewing cinema that can make the viewer question the systems of power that control them. Feminist film theory introduces new ways to view mainstream media and encourages alternate narratives to replace oppressive ones. Today, we will be looking at how feminism and film theory intersect, making the industry a better place for viewers and creators alike. I should start out by letting you know that the film industry does not represent women well. It never really has, but there are movements that are starting to push the industry in the right direction. Feminist film theory helps fight women's oppression by better representing women on screen and breaking barriers for women behind the camera. With what I'm about to show you, I hope I am able to help you think critically about what you see at the movies. There is patriarchal oppression embedded and internalized in every facet of society.
Grab him by the pussy, I could do anything.
Feminist film theory fights to take back the narrative and show the world women really do have ideas worth watching. To make it easier, I will examine one of the top grossing films of 2017, Wonder Woman, from a feminist film theory perspective. I hope to give some insight to what I mean by patriarchy and oppression, but first, we have to look at the two most critical aspects of feminist film theory: feminism and film theory. First, we have to take a dive into feminism. It doesn't have to be what some people think it is, which is a bunch of angry, hairy women burning their bras in the streets. Instead, picture it as women empowering each other and others to stand up to their own oppression. To put it simply, it's unfair that we get left out of things just because society has taught us that we're not good enough to do it. Technically, the dictionary defines feminism as the theory of the political, economic, and social equality of the sexes. Simple, right? Feminism challenges dominant patriarchal ideals. So how does one take this philosophy and apply it to movies? Feminist film theory. Film studies, by definition, is the study of films and filmmaking as an academic subject. Some may see it as stuffy and pretentious, but I like the way it breaks down films and looks at themes casual viewers might not notice. Think of an iconic movie you love. What do you love about that movie? Is it the romance, the action, the storyline? Well, most likely, it was almost entirely made by men. According to research, women are underrepresented in the industry as a whole. On screen, men are more likely to be main characters and have speaking roles. According to a study, only 30.2% of the 30,835 speaking characters evaluated were female across the 700 top grossing films. When a woman depicts herself, whether in writing, directing, or acting, she has first-hand experience of what it's like to be a woman. Women can depict female characters as real people with power and voice, without depicting the character as a caricature of a real woman, as we will explore with our analysis of Wonder Woman. My analysis mostly focuses on story-related aspects of Wonder Woman, but discrimination is evident in cinematic aspects of the film as well, such as the objectifying shots the director chose and how often women and women of color are depicted on screen. So, what is it that makes it so hard for women to get into the film industry? This is where feminist film studies comes into play. By viewing filmmakers, films, and the film industry as a whole through a critical lens, one might begin to realize flaws in the narrative. Feminist film theory critiques the use of stereotypes, sexist imagery, homogenous roles, and male-dominated cast and crew as the means of which to perpetuate a hegemonic patriarchal agenda that is pushed onto viewers. So, now that you have the framework, we're going to review a recent movie from a feminist perspective. Everyone's favorite film of 2017, Wonder Woman, was a box office hit, making over $820 million worldwide. It appears to be a kick-ass feminist film, and that's why we're going to analyze it. Wonder Woman was in the top 3 most popular films of last year, and in this analysis, we will explore why it does not advance women's representation in Hollywood. Rather, it seeks to exploit the main character as a sex object and fails to represent people of color, especially women, as important aspects to the storyline. I'll try to avoid spoilers as best as I can, just in case you haven't seen it. Gal Gadot plays Diana, a half-goddess princess from the hidden matriarchal Isle of Themyscira. It is set in World War I, and when a handsome British spy named Steve washes up on the shore of the island, Diana knows she must venture away from her home to fight the war god Ares, who she believes started the war in the first place. On her adventure, she experiences modern society for the first time, dabbles in romance, and fights evil on her way to kill Ares once and for all. Cool, right? Now that you know the story, I can start to break down why Wonder Woman isn't real feminism, but rather a generic fake type of Hollywood feminism that panders to a broad audience. Remember, this is Hollywood. If they portrayed Diana as too independent, people might get the wrong idea. Feminism is a dirty word, by the way. In an article entitled, "Why Wonder Woman is a Masterpiece of Subversive Feminism," said this about the film. Studio executives had to be sure she was feminine enough to be a sex object, but not so feminine that audiences feel like they're watching a girl power film. Wonder Woman must be a generic feminist icon. She must fit all the criteria of feminist while still appealing to the audience that isn't quite on board with the whole women's empowerment thing. Gal Gadot sums up Patty Jenkins' depiction of Wonder Woman this way. "Credit Patty for not turning Wonder Woman into a ballbuster," says Gadot. "She can be soft and naive, and at the same time, she just happens to be this demigoddess who can beat the shit out of you and can be super badass and smart and confident. Ultimately, she's very relatable." Right, no ball busting. Got it. That would be bad for ticket sales. Don't get me wrong, Wonder Woman has its perks. The way in which Hollywood executives presented this film does earn some points in the feminist film theory critique. First of all, the film was directed by a woman named Patty Jenkins. This in itself is a significant accomplishment, considering the statistics of women in executive roles in Hollywood that we looked at before. Wonder Woman is also the first major superhero movie to center its plot around a female hero, also a great accomplishment for women in the industry. It passes the Bechdel test just barely due to the opening scenes on the island. Wonder Woman leads viewers to believe it is a feminist film because of the empowered way she progresses in her adventure. She won't let a man get in the way of her superhero duties. She is from an island full of women, after all.
There is a whole island of women like her and not a single man among them? How do we get there?
That clip is just the tip of the iceberg for sex-based comments directed at Diana. And this, everyone, is what really gets to me about this movie. Here Wonder Woman is, fighting to end the war, and yet there's hardly a single male character that can keep their eyes off of her. Within the plot, there is a running dialogue about Diana being too distracting to fit into Steve's society.
Gentlemen, eyes to yourself, thank you so much.
This is where we run into cinema's most pervasive sexist problem: the male gaze. The male gaze, a core feminist film theory, asserts that women in films are presented as an object of male pleasure. The male gaze has been around since the beginning of film, with idols such as Elizabeth Taylor and Marilyn Monroe paving the way for heterosexual objectification. Wonder Woman is distracting because the male writers wrote her to be distracting. She fights in a miniskirt, whips her clothes off while riding a horse, and seductively eats an ice cream cone, seemingly for no reason other than to please male viewers. These images were designed to fulfill a man's fantasy of the perfect woman. Far from the feminist storyline it advertises to consumers. Cinematically, the director does not try to hide or play down the concept of the male gaze. There are so many shots of men staring at her, wide-eyed and in shock of her physical beauty.
Oh my goodness gracious. That's a work of art.
It points out to the viewer that Diana should be seen as a sex object as the characters see her. So you might be asking, so what? So what if Wonder Woman is so sexy every man who encounters her is stunned by her beauty?
I'm both frightened and aroused.
So what if Diana is labeled a distraction?
Let's go. What are you doing?
Can't do that because you're not wearing any clothes. Let's go buy you some clothes.
Well, it's because the way she's treated ends up translating to real women's lives. Reflection theory, another handy tool used by feminist film theorists, is a theory in which film is viewed as a simple reflection of social reality and critiques mainstream Hollywood films for presenting images of women that are, in fact, not reflections but distortions of women's real lives, which work to support patriarchal ideology. What does this mean? Well, in simple terms, it means that what's happening on the screen
The whole point was to make her look less distracting.
makes people think it's okay to do in real life.
15-year-old Miranda Larkin wore this black skirt and had no idea it violated the dress code. The teacher sent her to the school nurse, who told her to put on a bright yellow shirt and red sweatpants, both with the words dress code violation written on them.
Another aspect to reviewing this film from a feminist lens is the theory of intersectionality, or when two identities overlap to create a unique system of privilege or disadvantage. Journalist Lena Abirafe noticed a lack of intersectionality in Wonder Woman, saying in her article, "Also lacking in Wonder Woman is the idea of intersectionality. In this film, we are presented with majority white males. There are 3 women in the script after Diana leaves her home island. One is a seemingly incompetent secretary.
Keeps our tummies in.
Why must you keep them in?
Only a woman with no tummy would ask that question.
And the other is a mad scientist who enables the male villain to gain immense power."
The boys in the trenches called her Dr. Poison.
So why is intersectionality important? According to the Gina Davis Institute on Gender and Media, the underrepresentation of women and girls in films and television has a lasting effect on women and girls' psyche. It gives women and girls a narrow view of what's possible for them and exerts a powerful influence in creating and perpetuating unconscious biases among both men and women. Gaining information from the representation of women in Wonder Woman, I can infer that women are homely and idiotic from the representation of the secretary, evil and vengeful from the representation of Dr. Isabel Maru, or they are Wonder Woman, a practically flawless demigoddess who is also nearly impossible to relate to. Rachel Simon, in an article critiquing intersectionality in Wonder Woman, said this: "It'd be nice if they could also see imperfect heroes too. Women who they can look up to not just because of their power, but because of their flawed, realistic, and utterly relatable humanity." So, to recap, Wonder Woman is constantly objectified in this film and told to hide her intelligence and beauty.
Yes. Blind sister, she got lost on
She proves her male counterparts wrong through her actions, but the male gaze still plays into how the audience sees her, as a sex object. And although Diana comes from an island full of women, there is a complete lack of intersectionality and representation in the film. So, what can we do about it? The first step to depicting women better is simply having more women in the industry. Hiring Jenkins to direct the Wonder Woman reboot was just the first step to better representation. The industry must hire women writers, producers, casting directors, and production assistants to have any chance at equal representation. Most importantly, these women must come from a variety of different backgrounds to promote intersectionality in the film industry. Women of color, queer women, women of all ages, the film industry is waiting for you. Next, the responsibility falls on the consumer. Be selective in the types of media you consume. Yeah, you could go see the new Avengers movie, but you could also spend the same amount of money to see Lady Bird, a film with a female-dominated production crew, or Black Panther, which features an almost entirely black cast. In an article by Jean Ann Sutherland and Catherine Felty, they suggest using 4 parameters to judge the inclusion of women in film. 1. Women must be present in central roles. 2. There must be a variation in age range, size, sexuality, race, and appearance of women on screen, beyond the usual narrow parameter. 3. Women are seen in roles with power and status. And 4. There are variations from the heteronormative depictions of family. Even if a film doesn't meet these requirements, just remember what's at stake when the industry is able to perpetuate a false narrative of women. Using feminist film theory techniques and perspectives, you can think more critically, be a better consumer, and flip the script on traditional Hollywood. Feminist film theory is still working to take back the narrative and show the world women really do have ideas worth watching.